What is the scariest thing you've ever found? Let's start off this week's episode with a story from Reddit user U. Crimson Tears. I was staying at a hotel by myself after my mom had surgery. She had to stay in the hospital for a while. So they discharged me early because I was 18 and could take care of myself. This was my first time really being away from home for an extended period of time. So when I got to the hotel room, I unpacked and started watching TV. It was one of those flat-screen TVs that were popular back in like 2007. The remote didn't work very well. There were only a few channels that came in clearly and the Wi-Fi didn't work in the room. Oh, and it was also in the middle of a snowstorm. So needless to say, I was bored out of my mind. I went to bed early since I was exhausted and just woke up randomly in the middle of the night to what sounded like screams in the next room over. Now, if you've ever stayed at a budget hotel before, you know how paper-thin the walls are. You can literally hear everything. After I heard what sounded like a woman screaming, there was a loud crash and then footsteps running around the room next to mine. Then I heard the door to the room slam open and shut, of course. Yeah, I was freaked out, sitting in my bed trying to decide whether or not I should call the front desk or just pretend I was asleep. Eventually, I decided to just lay back down and try to go back to sleep. But about 30 minutes later, I woke up again to what sounded like the exact same thing. Another woman screaming, a loud crash, and then footsteps running around the room, followed by the door slamming open and shutting. At this point, I was too scared to go back to sleep, so I called the front desk. The woman who answered the phone was very sweet and asked me if I wanted to switch rooms or just send up some security. Since I was alone and petrified, I told her to please send someone up. About 20 minutes later, a man shows up at my door, asking if everything was okay. He was a security guard, and he asked if I wanted him to stay in the room with me until morning. I told him no thank you, but I think I need to change rooms. He agreed and walked me down the hall to another room. It was a suite instead of a standard double bedroom, which was nice. And the best part was that it was at the end of the hall, so there were no neighbors. After thanking the security guard and getting settled into the new room, I turned on the TV and started channel surfing. That's when I saw it. On the ceiling was a pair of footprints. They looked like someone had been walking across the ceiling and then stamped down hard enough to leave an imprint on the drywall. I immediately called the front desk to tell them about it, but they said that they would send someone up in the morning since it was 2 a.m. and no one was working. I told them that I wasn't staying there until morning and hung up the phone. I called my mom, who was staying in a different hospital than my dad, so she was able to come pick me up. She drove all the way out in the middle of the night to come get me, just because I was so scared to stay in the hotel room by myself. As soon as we got to her hotel room, I told her about the footprints and she laughed it off as just some kids messing around. However, my dad didn't find it as funny when I told him about it. He ended up calling the hotel himself to speak to the manager and demand a refund. The manager was very apologetic and gave us a full refund without any complaints. When my dad described the footprints on the ceiling to the manager, they said that they would look into it when they opened the next day. But they never called back. My parents both work in law enforcement, so they ended up filing a police report about it. Local police were also very about it and said that they would send someone by to look at it. But the hotel manager refused to let anyone in the room until after we checked out. So my dad paid for another hotel room for us to stay at, while the police investigated, and then the police never showed up either. We're still not sure what it was, but my dad was adamant that we never go back to that hotel. It's been 14 years and we still haven't gone back. I recently looked at their reviews and they have horrible reviews online. Lots of people saying that the place is dirty and dangerous and that they woe and be staying there again. One review mentioned hearing strange noises during the night, but I do unremember there being any bad reviews before 2016. So I wonder if maybe the hotel tried to cover up the footprints somehow. And after reading this story, I thought to myself, wow, this person must live in like a cabin in the woods or something. But then I read the comments and oh no, this person lives in downtown San Francisco. So if giant footprints appearing on your ceiling is unenough to make you never want to stay at a hotel again, I don't know what is. Our next Reddit post is from a user. I was taking a shower and my wife was brushing her teeth at the same time in the adjacent sink. The water pressure was low. She brushed a little too vigorously and suddenly the shower head drops into the drain. The water turns completely cold, and then we hear a massive crash behind the wall. Obviously, we freak out and run to grab flashlights to investigate. Pull the shower head out of the wall, and there's a small hole where the water comes out of. The wall is black, moldy tile, and I can see a bit of the insulation inside, but I can't see anything else. The shower floor is covered in several inches of standing water, but it doesn't appear to be draining either. I turn off the main water valve to the house, but the shower won't stop running. Turns out that the main water line coming into the house has ruptured and is gushing water under the foundation. Jump in the car and drive to Home Depot to get a roll of plastic sheeting, duct tape, some buckets, and a shop vac. We block off the bathroom doorway with plastic sheeting and set up a perimeter around the room with buckets. I bring the shop vac outside and connect it to the PVC pipe that goes to the shower head. The idea being that I can vacuum out some of the water, hopefully remove the shower head, and patch the hole with some PVC cement. However, the minute I plug in the shop vac, the water level in the shower rises dramatically. I rip off the PVC pipe, and the water stops flowing. I continue to pump out the water, and eventually get it drained down to about 2 inches. Then I crawl into the shower, turn on the light, and look around. In the corner, I see a small crack in the grout between the tiles. With my fingers, I feel my way along the crack and realize that it is actually a large fissure, about 1/2 inch wide and almost 8 feet long. I can even feel water dripping from somewhere behind the wall. My wife holds the flashlight as I scrape away the grout and map out the crack with a Sharpie. Once I'm done, I squeeze a bead of silicone caulk into the gap and smooth it out with my finger. I clean up, dress warmly, and call a plumber, who arrives and asks why I've drawn all over the shower with a marker. I explain the situation and he agrees to take a look. He takes one look at the crack and says, "You're screwed." Apparently the water line that feeds the shower runs through a chase in the foundation. This chase is essentially a void space built into the concrete that allows access to the plumbing. The water line has corroded through the PVC pipe and is actively spraying water into the void space under the house. Fortunately, the only way to access the broken pipe is through the shower. So we have to break up the concrete floor, dig out the old pipe, install a new line, and then pour a new concrete floor. The silver lining is that the plumber was able to tie into the existing lines and avoid cutting up the entire house. He finished the repair late that night, and we poured the new concrete floor the next day. We were lucky that we caught the break early and that it only affected the shower. If it had happened in the middle of the night and we hadn't noticed, the water could have caused thousands of dollars in damage to the house. And our final Reddit post is from Scary. I was in the basement of my home at midnight and heard what sounded like chains dragging metal moans. I rushed upstairs to my daughter's room where her closet door was wide open and her bed was empty. She's 22 months old. I ran back downstairs and shone my flashlight under the door and could see something moving inside. I called out to my wife, and she came downstairs and peeked in the darkness. All we could see were shadows moving in the dark. I grabbed a baseball bat and slowly pushed the door open. As the light hit whatever was hiding in the closet, I swung and connected with something solid. I screamed and dropped the bat, but it was a life-size scarecrow my wife bought from a store. It had fallen over and partially out of the closet. Needless to say, we ripped it apart, threw it out, and spent the rest of the night holding each other close. But that was the end of the scariest thing I've ever found. And if you like these kinds of scary stories, I've got 2 more videos that you might enjoy. Just click on one of the links on your screen now. As always, thanks for watching.